Hey you guys, how's it going? Today I thought I would bring you guys on a little tour of the front pond garden, which I think I'm rebranding, which I'll talk to you about in a minute. It looks so good, and I really want to show you like the before and the after, because even though we've only been here for 3 years, it's really gone through a lot of changes, and to really appreciate it, you really need to kind of see what it looked like before to what it looks like now. So before we head into the front pond garden, let me just take you through yesteryear so you can see just how little was here to how much it has changed today. So now that we're in this beautiful sanctuary, let's talk about what's here and the changes that I made, because when we moved in, only this sedum was here and that boxwood. And then there was a row of boxwoods on the outside of the garden, which they did not do well. They got hit with either a blight or some sort of, I don't know, they were having a problem. They browned out, they didn't look good, so I pulled them. But I planted this entire garden up. I did fall bulbs. I did spring flowering bulbs in here last fall, and they look spectacular. And last year I had planted around the outskirts with Impatiens. I did pink and white last year, but this year I stuck with just pink. And I have to say, I'm really loving the solid color. I really, really like it. I'm going to definitely do that again next year. And then 2 falls ago, I had dug and divided several perennials and moved them here, and they all did really well. My biggest mistake this year was when we moved out those boxwoods. They were protection for my hostas because the deer were not coming in here. But when we took them out, I neglected to spray my hostas, and wouldn't you know, they came in here and they started snacking. So as you can see, we had some damage, and they just really didn't recover that well this year. So I have to be a lot better about it this year. But actually I'm going to be making a change because I have a lot of Nandina around the front entry of my home, and I want to move it. So I think I'm actually going to do a whole border of Nandina in here. Probably move those too. And just do a whole row of them in here. And hopefully that will keep the deer out. You know, things happen, and unfortunately, I didn't get to them in time. So and it's my own fault. I always go around and spray, but I did not spray this area, and it's because I just was like, oh, they never go there. Well, guess what? They do. So it's because we took out those boxwoods. So anyway, let's first appreciate the biggest change of all, which is the pond itself, because I did some plantings here this year, and I was inspired to plant it up after Atlantis Water Gardens sat with me in the back pond and planted that up, and I learned a lot about pond gardening. And one of the things that he mentioned was how well impatiens do if their roots are just like sitting in water. So I bought a bunch and I planted them here in the garden, and I love how they look. I also potted up a couple of islands with pickerel and some creeping jenny, a couple other goodies, and I really love how they look. Now you might be wondering what the netting is for. So we never netted the pond, but we do net the pond in fall to keep the leaves out of the garden, but we don't usually net it during the season, and I'm going to tell you why we did it this year. We've had a blue heron problem for a number of years, and we have shabunkin goldfish in here, we have koi in here, and every year we've added koi, and every year they disappear. So we decided this year, since we were netting and being really proactive about the backyard, I said, let's try and do something with the front. And we had extra netting, so I took some green garden stakes, we cut the netting, and we sort of like attached it to the bridge and went around the garden so it couldn't fish around the edges of the pond. This pond is very deep. It's like 4 or 5 feet deep, so it cannot really fish in the middle, and the fountain, I think, helps distract it as well. But also, my husband had the idea to attach the net to the actual bridge. So we actually think he might have been fishing off the back here. So we netted this whole thing off, and our koi fish are intact. Now, I don't know if you can see any right now while we're here, but it's actually preserved our fish. So this, as much as it doesn't look really aesthetically pleasing, it's protected the pond and protected the fish. And oh, you can see little babies in there. Oh, there's a shibunkin. They probably think I'm gonna feed them. Look how many there are. When we moved here, there were no fish, and it's because the former homeowner had fish, and a mink got into the pond and ate everything, and he was just so devastated, so he did not add any more. And so when we moved in, we bought some baby shibunkins and baby koi, and the shibunkins have been multiplying like crazy. We think we have at least 50 babies in here. And my neighbor has a pond down there, so I think we're gonna give them some, because we cannot keep like 70 fish in here. That's probably way too many. So we're probably gonna be rehoming some of those and keeping the koi and just kind of trying to manage things here. But anyway, let's talk about the pond and the plantings, because it's really, really beautiful. So I did add some hyacinths, and they multiplied like crazy. My intention was never to have the waterfall hitting them from the fountain. I actually had them planted around the edges, but the fish must be like moving them around, and so it kind of, look at how many there are. They literally think I'm feeding them. Oh my gosh, I should have brought food. All right, I'll be back, you guys. I'll be back. Anyway, I planted some hyacinths. They multiplied like crazy. The fish, I think that's why the fish are breeding a lot more. I think they're putting their eggs in some of the roots and stuff in there. And I mean, there's just been an explosion of babies this year as opposed to prior years. So we added fish when we moved in 3 years ago. And this year, I would say, after we planted the pond up, we had a major explosion of babies. We did have some babies last year, but definitely not like this year. Clearly, I've got to get out here and feed the fish. They're looking. Moving on. So the former homeowner had like several garden statues here that they took with them. And they had some like, I don't know if it was a dinosaur or whatever out here. And they had like one bench. I saw this more as a fire pit area where we can come out here with family and friends, enjoy a cozy fire in the fall or in the spring. A little too hot out here in the heat of summer. By the pond, listen to the water, visit with the fish, if they're all over there, and kind of really enjoy this space. So it's really a great space to kind of hang out on a weekend and just enjoy nature in New Jersey, because it's really just beautiful here this time of year. And especially as the leaves start to change, like having a fire out here is so fun. Now, I also hung these, well, when I say I hung, I mean Chris hung, but I bought them, so I get credit. We hung solar string lights, and they really light up the night here, so you can see. And I've got some tiki torches, and I also really love these solar lanterns. Now, if you've been following me for a while, you've probably seen them before in my content. They are amazing. Let me tell you, I've had mine for years. I hang them throughout the gardens on these shepherd's hooks. I just bring them indoors in winter, the lanterns, and they have lasted year after year. They go on at dusk, they go off at dawn, and really they're beautiful. We actually leave the string lights out all year round. We do not take them down, and they light up night after night. They're fabulous. I cannot recommend solar string lights enough. So if you have not added them to your garden yet, you should. If you don't have trees or anything to anchor them onto, I found this year these really awesome temporary poles with like little stakes in them that you can stick in the ground, and so you can kind of pop them up anywhere, and they're fabulous. Now I actually bought two different ones. I bought one from Home Depot and one from Amazon, and I have to say the one from Home Depot is way more durable. I would highly recommend those. I wouldn't get the ones on Amazon. At least the ones that I found a few months ago, they were kind of flimsy, not as strong, but the ones that I found on Home Depot, they are awesome. So anyway, let's talk about this garden. So I planted pink impatiens around the entire perimeter. There are spring flowering bulbs. If the chipmunks didn't dig them all up, I might have to plant some more because I'm sure they've been active this season. My caladium has seen better days. It's been really hot, really dry here, and I forgot to get out and fill the reservoir of my self-watering container. So we're just gonna not really look at that one. I'll have to put a video on the screen of what it did look like because it was really beautiful. I just was really lame and I just haven't been out here to water. So my fault, my bad. So this sedum was here. I'm not really a fan. It spreads a lot and it always does this open center no matter how much I've dug and divided it. And every year I do try to get to it with these little half moon stakes, and that does help. But this year I got to it a little too late. I should have done it earlier before the plant even really got to be like 6 inches tall. I got to really be better about doing that next year. I'm going to leave a note to myself in my garden journal to do that and be a little more proactive with it so it doesn't spread as much. Last year I was a little bit better about it and it looked so much better. So I dug and divided several perennials a couple years ago. The first year after we moved in, when I noticed nothing was here, I moved a bunch of hostas and ferns and astilbes, and really it looks so pretty here. Unfortunately, I was lame about spraying my hostas, which I'm going to be much better about the next year. This is why you can never get complacent. And I did get complacent because I was like, oh, I have the boxwoods there. They never come in here. Well, they do. And you should always spray regardless and just don't get complacent. So I'm going to be a little bit better about that next year so I don't have this. And I usually try to spray my sensitive plants very early in the season, as soon as they start to break ground, and then every couple of inches of growth thereafter until they're like fully mature, which I got to this one in time. So I do have some astilbes in here, dark side of the moon. It was a little dry this summer, so this area was very dry. I might actually dig them up and relocate them to a better location where they're going to get a little bit more moisture. It was just too dry here. They've been in this garden for about a year now, and I don't think they love it. So I'm going to definitely relocate them to an area that has a little bit more moisture. These astilbes that I dug and divided seem fine. These are not loving it, so I think I got to move them. Do you have a butterfly bush here? We get part sun, I would say, back here. It's probably even a little less than part sun. And I do not have irrigation in this garden at all. So one of the blooms right now is this caryopteris. So pretty, right? Look at all of the bees on it. Isn't that fabulous? We have a bunch of barberries here I don't love. I really want to remove them. They are invasive. I mean, yes, they add color and the deer don't bother them, but they're invasive. Birds take the seed, drop the seed, and they take over. So I know they are sold at nurseries, but there are definitely better options. Like something like 9-bark would be a lot prettier. You'd still get that beautiful foliage and not have the invasive aspect of the plant. Look, the fish are like following me. I have some more hostas and impatiens in here. And really, I love how this garden turned out this year. I mean, I'm gonna have to put a video up here of what it looked like before, because what a difference. And I really want to say how much I love pinks in the garden here. Just so beautiful. So we do leave the Adirondack chairs and fire pit out all season long. I'm gonna have to get out here and do some work on the Adirondacks. They're looking a little less than stellar. So I'm gonna have to probably do a light sanding and kind of seal them to protect them a little bit better. But they do fold and we can put them away if we want. Or I should really just get, you know, the Adirondacks that can withstand, you know, all weather, because these did not love being out all year round. So I think I got to protect them a little bit better. On this side of the garden, you can see what I call the cottage. I do have a garden over there. But anyway, this is where we can kind of exit and go up into the potager. I do have some bulbs planted in there. I think I noticed a chipmunk dig up the tulips. Hopefully at least my daffodils are still there. I do have alliums planted in there. Hopefully they'll come back. We'll see what happens next year. But I did also plant some tithonia. I started a bunch from seed. If you're not growing Mexican sunflower, such a pretty flower, and the pollinators love them. I think I might rebrand this the Secret Garden, because you don't even know that it's here. I mean, you pull in our driveway that way, and you almost really don't even know that it's here unless you walk up and through the potager. So what do you think? Tell me in the comments below. You think I should rebrand this the Secret Garden? I'm thinking that I should. I also want to give you a little view from the bridge so you can see my gardens. There's like layers upon layers upon layers. So, you know, here we have the front pond garden, and then we've got the potager and cut flower garden there, some garden statues, they're sculptures from trees, and then my home with all of the gardens up there by the porch. But then if I pan over to the right, you can see some more gardens over here. This is what I call the cottage. We have some storage and things like that in there for bricks and blooms, a lot of my garden supplies and things like that. And I just planted this garden up this year with a bunch of perennials from proven winners and a lot of my seed starts. I'll have to do a tour of that garden another day. We had liriope in there, very much like Flora Lane up along the back. I've done videos on Flora Lane before, so I'll link it here in the video, in the description, and at the end of the video, in the end card. This garden too was filled with liriope. We took it all out. The soil really needs some help. I'm gonna have to add a lot of compost and some leaf mold to really help with drainage and fertility and things like that, because even though the plants did okay, they definitely are showing signs like they need nutrition. So I'm gonna have to do a little soil work this year in the fall before we put the gardens to bed. But, you know, overall, I'm really happy with how it turned out. And, you know, every year that we amend the soil and add plantings and, you know, fresh compost and leaf mold and mulch and stuff, every year is going to improve that soil and make that garden that much better. I'm really happy with how it turned out this year. I feel like it's coming together. You know, we've lived here since December 21, and I'm really like getting a handle on the gardens and how things grow and how I want things to look. And I'm really just thrilled with where it's all going. So I really appreciate you guys being here with me today. I hope you enjoyed this tour of the front pond garden, or Secret Garden if you guys think I should rename it that. That's it, you guys. There's still so much that I want to do back here, but I love where it's going. It looks so good, right? Definitely going to be staying with the pinks, I think. So anyway, that's it for the tour today. Thanks so much for joining me in the Secret Garden today. I'll see you in the next video. Enjoy a beautiful day.